Now is the time to cash in on Lad McConkey. We'll tell you why and for what next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check him out over on SI, where he does fantastic work. And on today's show, we're taking a look at some players that you need to sell right now in your Dynasty leagues before we even get to training camp. Fabs has come up with a good list of some veteran running backs, some older receivers to move now while they still have value. But I've got kind of a shocking name that I want to pitch to you, Fabs, and it's Lad McConkey, who I absolutely love. If you're watching with us on YouTube right now, I collect Lad McConkey football cards. So I am a massive Lad McConkey fan. I loved it when the Chargers drafted him. I was a big fan at Georgia. But it's all about price and value. And I look at the ADP over on Dynasty League Football, and Lad McConkey is currently wide receiver 10. He's being drafted as the 15th overall player. And it just feels a little rich for me, especially when you consider some of the names that are being drafted behind him, like Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Travis Hunter, Rashee Rice. I'm not saying I'd take all of those guys over Lad, but the fact that there's a pretty decent gap between all of those receivers and Lad makes me think maybe now is the time to move on.
And it makes sense. Listen, I love Lad too. I called him Laddie Daddy. I'm going to call him Laddie Daddy because he was fantastic in putting up top 12 numbers as a rookie. People see him and they see Julian Edelman type of guy, slot receiver who could potentially be a target hog in this league for a long, long time. I would caution people, though, that you have to keep in mind that any receiver who's in Greg Roman's offense has got a bit of a cap on his ceiling because this is a run-based offense. And we can look back at what Roman did during his offensive coordinator days on other teams, whether it was in San Francisco or the Baltimore, Buffalo. There was just a cap on the wide receivers, right? I mean, you talk about like a Michael Crabtree and Anquan Bolden. He hasn't had like these big, massive wide receiver fantasy stars. And McConkey also, and I hate to say bad things about him because, again, I'm a big fan of him. Not the most durable guy in the world. You also have to keep that in mind. The Chargers drafted Trey Harris as well. So you would see that he could potentially be a bigger part of this offense in seasons to come. So I get it. And listen, there are scenarios where younger players exceeded expectations. And because of those exceeded expectations, the numbers just go bananas the following year. And in terms of his value, and I think based on I would have Rashee Rice over Lad McConkey all day long. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I'd rather have him over Lad McConkey all day long. And some of the other players that Marcus mentioned too, I'd rather have them over Laddie Daddy as well. So if you can pull off a trade, and obviously his value is ridiculously high right now, maybe it'll never be higher. I am not against that.
And that's kind of the point for me. Like, I think Lad is an awesome player. I just have a hard time envisioning him being higher than wide receiver 10. That's it. I mean, there's very few receivers that ever crack the top 10 in our dynasty leagues. You mentioned the size. He is 5'11", 186. So I do think he gets miscast as a slot receiver only. I mean, he's the same exact size as Garrett Wilson, and we don't think of Garrett Wilson as a slot only. So maybe we see the Chargers move him around a little bit more, this year. But again, they drafted Trey Harris. They drafted Omarion Hampton to run the ball a little bit more. We'll see what Quentin Johnston has in year 3. They brought back Mike Williams. Again, none of this really is going to impact Lad all that much. but they did add some more target competition. I wanted to run through some trades because this is honestly the biggest reason why I think you should cash in on him right now. Couple trades. Lad McConkey for pick 102 in a rookie draft. I'm assuming that's going to be a Marion Hampton.
I'm befuddled. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's bananas. That I mean, listen. Again, I love the guy. He was one of my favorite sleepers going into last season, but basically a straight up trade for Omarion Hampton, who will be the centerpiece of that Los Angeles Chargers offense for a long, long time.
Yep.
Get up, man. Yes.
By the way, all these trades are courtesy of Dynasty League Football, and they've all happened over the last 3 weeks, so they're all pretty relevant. Lad McConkey in pick 109, and I just did a rookie draft on Wednesday. 109, you're looking at usually that's the Emeka Buke, Matthew Golden range. Lad McConkey in 109 for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in.
A couple more.
Yeah.
Lad McConkey. Now, this is a non-super flex league, and if you want to break him down into a couple pieces, this is what you can get. Lad McConkey for Bo Nix, Xavier Worthy, and a 2026 first round pick.
I gotta ask the person who traded for McConkey there. How much Jack Daniels were they taking? I mean, like,
Jack Daniels not a sponsor of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
Like, listen, I mean, Lad McConkey's a good player, but he's not Justin Jefferson, for crying out loud. Wow,
no.
that's highway robbery, bro.
Two more I wanted to throw at you. Lad McConkey and Tucker Kraft for Rashee Rice, who you said you take over Lad,
yes,
and Sam Laporta.
Again,
yeah,
I'm rarely speechless, but holy crap!
This is kind of the
crazy.
Point. People love Lad these dynasty leagues, and I totally get
it.
Like,
too, but I mean, come on, man! Like, that's insane. You got to be smart about the folks out there in those trades that are trading away Lad McConkey are brilliant.
I know.
Brilliant.
It
just makes no sense to me.
Lad McConkey for Travis Hunter and 2 second-round picks.
I like that too.
I know. That's the thing.
And I don't know what Travis Hunter is going to be. And, you know, that's something that Marcus and I should probably talk about at some point, you know, during the month of July, as we get closer and closer to like serious drafts. It's crazy. Training camps are here in a few weeks, but no, I'd rather, I like that too. I didn't, and listen, I love Lad McConkey. All right. That is unbelievable. I think those expectations for what he will be compared to what the teams that traded him away will get for him and have gotten for him based on those deals. Whew, I mean, those are going to be unrealized expectations.
And that's the point. If you have Lad McConkey in your dynasty leagues, just go out and throw out a couple offers. See what guys might be interested in adding Lad to their team, because there's no doubt he's a top 15 dynasty receiver. Like, we're not debating that at all. It's just that maybe this is the highest his value will ever be. And if you can cash in and get multiple chips, or honestly, my favorite trade of all of those fabs is giving up that late first rounder on top of Lad to go up and get someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now you're giving yourself a bona fide wide receiver one every single week in a high-powered offense. I think that's my favorite way to cash him in.
If you can do it, I would absolutely do it. I mean, typically you don't want to trade away young assets, but in this case, where the value is exceeded maybe what he'll ever be in the NFL, I mean, who knows? Last season may have been his ceiling year. Maybe he's never going to be more than a wide receiver 11 or 12 in the NFL.
Which is more than fine, by the way. Which is more than fine. It's just,
hell yeah, I'll take that all day long. But I mean, if I'm getting Amon-Ra St. Brown, if I'm getting Rashee Rice, like, yes, like we already know Amon-Ra is elite, and I think Rashee Rice has got the tools in his toolbox to be elite.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more with those deals on the sides of the teams trading away Laddie Daddy.
All right, let's talk about some running backs that you should be trading away in your dynasty leagues. Let's talk about Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it just a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I love FanDuel. I love going to check out all the odds and the lines. And with football season right around the corner, I'm already peeking at some of those preseason odds, week one odds. I listen. I love FanDuel. I love going to check out the futures bets. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're discussing 5 players that you need to sell in your Dynasty leagues right now. And Fabs, let's talk about some running backs. And we'll start with the guy that you've been screaming to sell all off season long, and that is Saquon Barkley.
Sell high, baby. Sell high. Coming off a season with over 2,000 rushing yards, posting an RB2 finish. He's entering his age 28 season. I've talked about it at length here and over at Sports Illustrated about regression is coming. And if you don't remember some of those examples of why regression is very likely coming, you can look at the stats of former 2,000-yard rushers and how every single running back who's rushed for 2,000 yards has seen a drop of at least 99.2 fantasy points the following year. That was the great Eric Dickerson. And everyone else, triple digits in terms of the drop, in terms of fantasy points. If you're one of those folks who's superstitious, Madden curse, don't have to get really into that very much. And then you talk about the curse of 370. When a running back has 370 or more touches in a single season, there's a regression more often than not. Also, when a running back has over 400 combined carries in the regular season and the postseason, there is very often a regression, whether it comes from just simple math where this was a regression to the mean because the numbers were so good the previous season, or potentially all that workload leads to a player wearing down. That's also in the realm of possibility for Saquon Barkley. And keep in mind, folks, if regression does come and the regression monster is lurking, let's put it that way, and then he's 29 next season. And at that point, you're starting to think about a player whose stats are going to start to decline. And then when you hit 30, typically these guys are not Derrick Henry or, Curtis Martin, who had a huge year at 31. It just doesn't typically happen. And let's also not forget that, Saquon Barkley is a great running back, but it's not like he's avoided injuries throughout his entire career. He had some serious injuries when he was with the G-Men, and I would not be shocked if he missed some time this upcoming season. And this is just not me rooting against the Philadelphia Eagles, okay, in my own division. I'm not doing that. I'm just looking at it factually from a historical and a trend standpoint. And Saquon's very valuable right now. And if there's a team in your league, and will be the theme for me, if there's a team in your league that needs that one superstar player to get over the edge, to get to that championship, and is willing to part ways with some draft capital and some young players, you absolutely have to look into making that deal.
All right, let's talk about some potential deals that you can do. These are some recent trades from Dynasty League Football. I want your thoughts. Would you trade Saquon Barkley for Devon Achane straight up?
Yes.
Okay. Easy. Is that easy for you? Not even thinking about
easy
it?
Easy peasy lemon squeezy, my brother. Easy peasy. Yes.
So if you're looking on the Dynasty League Football ranks right now, Saquon Barkley, RB4, Achane, RB5. We have another trade of Saquon Barkley for Breece Hall in a 2026 third-round pick.
I think I'd do that.
I think I would keep Barkley there just because.
I probably want to try and get more than a third-round pick, but, Breece Hall's a young back, and everything that you read about Breece is that he's really motivated to bounce back. And I think the Jets are just going to run the ball a lot over the next couple of years. And, at some point or another, Breece Hall is going to come up to the point where he's going to want a new contract. And if you're out there putting up ho-hum numbers, it's not going to happen. So I would do that because I think I can get 4 more good years of Breece Hall. And with Saquon, I maybe get 2 tops.
I mean, I think that one obviously depends on what stage your dynasty team is. If you're trying to compete at least a
Sure.
little bit, but you're trying to cash in Saquon, I think I would rather just have Saquon. But if you're in a complete rebuild, I would rather have Brees Hall. But then again, if you listen to Wednesday show with Matt Williamson, if you're trying to rebuild, you don't want to try to get a 24-year-old running back. You want to cash Saquon Barkley into some other kind of asset. That leads me to another trade. Saquon Barkley for Marvin Harrison Jr. straight up.
I wouldn't do that. I'd
Ooh,
want more.
You'd see that's
I'd
funny.
want.
I would rather have Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'd
than
want.
Brees Hall.
I'd want really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get wide receivers are super valuable. I'd want a little bit more. Just the bottom line here is that featured top end type running backs are much harder to find than a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. And listen, I think he's going to have a really nice career, but I don't think he's going to be his old man. I don't think he's going to be a guy who's the wide receiver one. And from a fantasy perspective, multiple times during his career, I just don't know that he's going to be that player, especially, when you talk about having Trey McBride in the offense as well. I mean, Reggie Wayne was in that Indianapolis offense, Dallas Clark, but you had Peyton Manning throwing the football in a completely different offense. I like Marvin Harrison Jr. a lot. I'd want to get a little bit more. Honestly, I'd rather get somebody like, say, Rashee Rice or Jackson Smith and Jigba, or maybe even shoot for the stars a little bit, get a player with a little bit more value than even those two players. I think you could do better. I think you could do better than getting Harrison Jr. For Barkley straight up.
Yeah, my hot take: Marvin Harrison Sr. a little overrated. He had Peyton Manning throwing the ball in the dome. It's fine.
It's funny too, because you look back at the old man's rookie year, almost exactly the same number as his kid. And historically, you go back and look at Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't really break out for like 3-4 years. It took him some time, and then obviously he became what he was. And according to Marcus, that was overrated.
Yeah, just a little bit. I think when people are putting him in the top 5, top 6 wide receivers.
Well, listen, I mean, if you didn't have Peyton Manning, yeah, of course, yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed from a lot of these trades is I thought Saquon Barkley would fetch more in some of these trades, and it hasn't materialized yet. I'll give you another one. Saquon Barkley for Quinshon Judkins, a 2026 third and a 2026 fourth. Like I like Judkins, but that's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
It's
not enough. No, I like Judkins too, but again, I mean, I'm not telling you that you have to trade these guys right now, but like put them on the trade block and see what offers come your way. If people are giving you garbage, then you keep them. But you never know. You never know. I mean, and that's proven in some of those trades that we talked about for Lad McConkey.
Yeah. Let's talk about another running back, Christian McCaffrey. He's currently being drafted as RB15, one spot behind Quinshon Judkins, 46 overall. Why is not now the time to move on from CMC?
I mean, honestly, the time to move on from him was probably a year ago. But I said it before, I'll say it again. He's entering his age 29 season. He hasn't played in more than 7 games in 3 of the last 5 years. He came back and played 4 games last year and averaged 12 points per game. And that was it. And I just think it's time to jump ship. And there are some people out there, Marcus, who are still very high on Christian McCaffrey and think that he's going to end up being an elite player this year. And maybe he is. But that's redrafts. We're talking about Dynasty here. How many more really good years does he have? Can you even guarantee this year will be a high-end elite type year for McCaffrey? No. I don't know. If you draft McCaffrey in the first round, you're hoping that he's, a top 5 running back. I wouldn't be surprised if he were in the 12 to 15 range at running back, and that assumes he even stays healthy, which he hasn't really been able to do much over the last 5 years.
So a couple trades, Christian McCaffrey for pick 106 in a super flex league. So that means you're probably getting Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins with that 6th pick.
Yeah, I would do that.
Okay. And that feels about right. How about another one? Christian McCaffrey for pick 107. Would you do that?
Yes.
Okay. Christian McCaffrey for DJ Moore in a 2026 second round pick.
I want more.
Yeah,
I want more. I'm greedy, bro.
Well, and at that point, I think you're better off just holding on to CMC, hoping that he can be like a good RB2 for you. Because I don't know how much value
you have to get a first round pick in return for Christian McCaffrey, or it's not worth it, or a high second and a good young player.
Okay.
That you don't want to, like, DJ Moore is nice and all, but I mean, come on. I mean, which stratosphere is he, in the same category as McCaffrey? He's not.
All right. How about a player for another older guy? Let's say both teams are trying to compete right now. You have a wide receiver need. Christian McCaffrey for AJ Brown, straight up.
I think that's a fair deal. I think that's 100% a fair deal. So in the scenario where, hey, I've got running back depth and I need a wide receiver, and vice versa on the other side of that deal, I think that's a fair deal.
I just wonder if in your dynasty leagues, people are going to be hesitant to give up like a future first round pick for McCaffrey, given his injury history, but they might be more willing to give up, a 28 or 29-year-old receiver, trade in some of their wide receiver depth for McCaffrey, take a risk there. I think if you're going to trade him, that's probably what you're hoping to do.
Yeah. And I mean, AJ Brown has got what, 3 more good years potentially, before he hits like 32. Whereas again, I don't even know that McCaffrey's going to be good this season, or at least meet the expectations of people who are drafting him in the first round in redrafts, and in some cases in the second round of dynasty startups. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
All right, let's talk about a couple older wide receivers that still have value that we are trying to move before week 1. We'll tell you who they are next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Fabs, let's talk about 2 older receivers that we are trying to move. And let's start with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're probably not going to get a whole lot for Tyreek Hill, but I think now's the time to deal him because I don't like what I saw last season. When you look at some of the advanced stats, right, his yards per catch average dropped from 15.1 to 11.8. His receiving points added went from plus 81.3 down to plus 19.9, and these are all next-gen stats. He was less effective after the catch, 306 receiving yards last year after the catch. In 2023, 690. He also is 31 years old. He's also always at risk to have some sort of off-field issue.
We call that the knuckleheaded facturness, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Darren Waller going to Miami, and I don't understand really why they did that. I guess they're thinking it's a very inexpensive move, and you take a chance on a player like a Darren Waller. But with the Jonnu Smith deal, a lot of people are probably thinking, including myself, that a guy like Tyreek and Jalen Waller are going to see more targets. So this could be a good time to try and flip Tyreek Hill, because when you're in fantasy and you're a manager, you need to be a salesman as well. And you need to pitch the fact that, hey, 111 targets are gone. Darren Waller ain't going to absorb all those targets. They're going to go to Tyreek Hill, and he's still got a few good years. And once again, you got to know who you're talking to in negotiations, right? You're not going to be trying to flip Tyreek Hill to a team that's already got really good young talent, right? You're looking to flip him to a team that's really close to potentially getting to a championship and needs that one potential veteran to get him or her over the top when it comes to getting to the top of the fantasy mountain. And those are the kind of or maybe there's just a diehard Dolphins fan in your league, because heck, why wouldn't you do that? If I'm trying to trade a player to Marcus, I may be throwing a Cowboy in there because, maybe I don't know why I'm trading Cowboy, but you get the point. So you have to know your managers, your fellow managers in your league as well. And I mean, Tyreek Hill was bad last season. He was still in the wide receiver 2 conversation. I think you could sell him now as a guy who could have a bounce back year. And I think Marcus believes that he will have a bounce back year.
Yeah, I was going to say Tyreek is somebody that I'm actually trying to trade for. So depending on the league, right? If you're rebuilding, obviously you've got no interest in Tyreek, but I think Tyreek is going to be a lot easier to sell than Christian McCaffrey because he played last year. And yes, he didn't put up 1,800 yards like he did in 2023, but it was about 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's a down year for Tyreek Hill. I would much rather bet on Tyreek Hill just kind of bouncing back and being a little bit more effective than like Christian McCaffrey staying healthy, because Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, I get 0 value. At least with Tyreek, like he was still putting up wide receiver 3 numbers. Like he's at least somewhat useful. So I get it. I also think the price is very attainable. Let me give you a couple traits. Zay Flowers for Tyreek Hill straight up.
I'd rather have Zay Flowers.
I think in a vacuum, I would rather have Zay Flowers. But again, if I feel like I'm one of the top 4 or 5 teams in my league and I've got Zay Flowers, I think I would flip him for Tyreek. I think I would.
I just the age, situation for me is where
I just
is
have a
where I
hard
like.
time. I have a hard time seeing Zay Flowers ever being even a wide receiver too, because he also plays in an offense that likes to spread the ball around and is very run heavy.
Yeah, no, I get it. I also think, how much longer is Mark Andrews going to be, in Baltimore? DeAndre Hopkins is way past his prime. Rashad Bateman is coming off of a 9 touchdown season that he's probably not going to duplicate. And just for me, I just think of the long term. Now, if I'm the team that's getting Tyreek and I've got a shot to potentially go to the championship, would I rather have Tyreek over Zay for 1 year? Yeah.
See, I don't mind getting Tyreek if I have like 2 young receivers. Maybe I have Drake London and Lad McConkey, and now Tyreek is my quote unquote wide receiver 3, but he has the potential to outscore both of those guys. Like he just stays healthy. Tua's a little bit more efficient. Boom, you're right back to 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns. That's why I'm not completely out on Tyreek. Couple other trades. Tyreek for Christian Kirk and pick 112. 112, you're looking at, again, usually that Matthew Golden, Emeka Buke, RJ Harvey range.
Not a completely unfair deal. If I can get Emeka Ibuka, especially because I really like him long term, in that spot, then that would be a win for me.
All right, one more. This one's gonna make you laugh. Tight end premium, so I need to point that out. Tyreek for Kyle Pitts, straight up. Tight end premium though, Fab.
No, but dude, how premium? Like,
is it like the Scott Fishbowl where you get 3.5?
I know. I'm actually having my draft in New York on the 19th. I'm going up to Legends to go meet up with my boy James Roday Rodriguez, and we're going to draft together. That's going to be a lot of fun. I wouldn't do that. I dislike all things Kyle Pitts. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Last one here, Mike Evans, wide receiver 34 in your dynasty leagues, according to ADP right now from Dynasty League Football. He still has value. He continues to produce. Wasn't 100% healthy last year. Still got to 1,000 yards. I think someone's going to want him in your dynasty leagues, at least as a wide receiver 3. But why is now the right time to move on?
You look at the age. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's creeping up into, that age where wide receivers start to fall off a little bit. And the Buccaneers, we don't know what's going on with Chris Godwin. And in fact, I'd be surprised if he's not on the PUP list to begin the season. But, they have more weapons, right? I mean, they drafted Ibuka. Jalen McMillan was very good in the second half of last season. So there's more weapons. You throw Kate Otten in there. So there's more pieces of that target pie that are getting split up. And I mean, let's be honest, Baker Mayfield was a fun player to watch last year, and I don't mind having him on my fantasy team. But I mean, I warned people about the magical season. I mean, Baker Mayfield was awesome last season. I mean, like, I don't think he's going for 40 plus touchdown passes again. And so, it's one of those scenarios where it's kind of like, I got great production from Mike Evans for a long, long time. If you've been in a dynasty league for a while, I mean, Mike Evans is going to the Hall of Fame. He's won a Super Bowl, the 1,000-yard seasons back to back to back to back. You get the idea, but you've got to know when to kind of jump ship. And I think we're getting to the point now with Mike Evans in a dynasty league where it's probably time to start looking at some younger alternatives in a trade.
Yeah, the only pushback that I would say is that I think Tampa Bay is going to throw the ball a lot because their defense is awful. And they play a division where, I mean, who has the best defense in the NFC South right now? Is it the Saints? Maybe.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Mean, they're just going to throw the ball all over the field. But I agree with you. If you're, this is probably the last year that Mike Evans is going to be valued as a top 40 receiver. And if you're just somebody that always wants to be 1 year ahead, rather than, letting the bottom completely fall out, I do think you can trade him. We've seen some trades over the last couple of days of like Mike Evans for DJ Moore or Mike Evans for Jaden Reed straight up. Like I do think there's some, trades out there. Mike Evans for Brandon Ayuk, if you want to get, 6 or 7 years younger, they're out there if you want to get it done.
But some of those players come with some risk, though, right? Jaden Reed and Brandon Ayuk definitely come with some risk. But if you are looking to get younger, I mean, those are potential options. I'd want to get something else in return if I'm dealing Mike Evans for an Ayuk or for Jaden Reed. I don't know if I do those deals straight up. Green Bay's wide receiver room is ridiculously crowded, and I don't know what Brandon Ayuk is going to be. At this point, I just don't.
No. Which of the two players, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, do you think has more value in dynasty trades?
I think Evans, just because he's just continued to do it. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, I mean, some of the advanced metrics are really not good for Tyreek Hill based on his past success.
Yeah, I think it's Tyreek. I just think the name value of Tyreek, the recent seasons where he's had 1,700 yards, I think somebody's going to bet on him getting back there. So it's
yeah,
close.
the name value is certainly there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. We are free and available on all platforms. Make sure you check out tomorrow's show. We're doing some of the biggest training camp battles that we are keeping an eye on for our Dynasty leagues. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you right back here on Friday.